you keep your farm life grounded in times of crisis? Listen in as aquaculture farmer Azure Cygler talks about Farm Fridays on the water, checking in with the earth, and following your heart, all on this episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Get away from the cares of the day. Free stock, root stock, feed stock, seed stock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Food, Flowers, and Fun Visits with Farm Women from around the world. As always, we are sponsored by Penlight for Farmers, who is helping farmers to make more satisfying, efficient, and peaceful farm lives. Yes, you too can have that. And our guest today is amazing. Her name is Azure Cygler, and she is here in Rhode Island. She is actually positioned at this present moment in the greenhouses at the University of Rhode Island. And I used to work there 100 years ago. So looking at this is really, really very, very beautiful for me. So Azure, welcome. Oh, and she is the owner of Rhody Kelp, correct? That is your business name, and she's going to tell us all about what it is to farm kelp, which I just think is fascinating because I love the whole idea of seaweedy type stuff. So Azure, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Oh, so glad to
day.
So, we usually just get in and I start with having you tell us about yourself, where you're from, how you got into kelp. Like, what a great story you have. So share that with us.
Thank you. Yes, my company is Rhody Wild Sea Gardens. Rhody Kelp is always the most logical way of remembering it, which is through my Instagram. But I really grew up in the ocean arena. I grew up in Southern California, always loved the sea. Took scuba diving with my dad, grew up surfing down in La Jolla. So always loved the ocean. And really, saw the ocean as needing the most help in terms of fisheries. So took my college path through the University of Santa Cruz, doing marine biology, but then really focused on fisheries. There was we have a tendency to over extract, us crazy humans, so there were some thoughts and issues around fisheries. So I got into the world of ocean career work and studied fisheries and became a fisherman. So I fished in Alaska and American Samoa, and eventually led me to Cape Cod, where I work with some grassroots fishing organizations. So fishing was sort of my deep dive, no pun intended, into the ocean world and ocean work, and then did a lot of science and outreach and work for the Science Center in Woods Hole, for NOAA Fisheries, and sort of dabbled. But all of that, I feel, has culminated into lived experiences, which have brought me into aquaculture. And I started my own farm in 2020. I call it a career chiropractic, where I sort of adjusted where I felt I could be most of use in terms of where the ocean could use a little love and where I wanted to put my energy, and decided to start my own kelp farm in 2020.
Yeah, and I feel like those pandemic years were really pivotal for a lot of us. I feel like you are not the first farmer that I've had on here who kind of found a new calling in that 2019, 2020 area, because things got really, really ugly. And I find it interesting that you kind of got back into taking care of the ocean through aquaculture at that time, because one of the things that really struck me during the pandemic was all the reports coming out about how much cleaner air was in different places, and how rivers that had been like completely disgusting were just naturally restoring themselves simply because we weren't doing what we always did. And I grew up in a farm family that, ironically, you can be a farmer and not be like an environmentalist. Like we rely on the farm and the land and nature so much. And yet there is kind of sometimes this disconnect that like being an environmentalist means that you don't want to use the land. You just want to, have it as free, forests or whatever, which doesn't have to be the case at all. And so I find it interesting to have people who go back into some kind of farming because of their desire to take care of nature. So talk about how you fell in love with kelp because you did all kinds of like I've got all kinds of different fish here. I mean, you were doing king crab and tuna. You worked for Starkist, right? So like you were doing some big tuna fishing. That's not like that's not that's not tuna fishing for the neighborhood. Like, that's pretty impressive. So how'd you get into kelp?
Well, I think, coming back to your great perspective on the pandemic, I think we all sort of found ourselves as our authentic selves. A sort of crisis brings out authenticity, I think, too,
Mm.
and whether that's a raw, good or bad. And so I think for me, the as a woman, always been career centered and worked my whole life, and come from that type of family as well. I felt as though that sort of calling as a mom. I have two kiddos, a 15-year-old and 8-year-old, and watching them grow. And there was that strengthened resolve as that nurturer, and then knowing, oh, my role as a woman nurturer is kind of shifting because my kids are growing up. So how else can I nurture? And so I feel like for me in 2020, going into kelp farming, it was a very natural calling to at least try, and knowing there was a lot of unanswered market questions, and a lot of other people in Rhode Island have done kelp and have done it really well, are still doing it really well. So it's by no means a new or novel idea, but I think there was like a lull where in 2020, folks had tried it, grew it well, and there was not a lot of market opportunities, and that was really appealing. Kelp is just sort of the notoriety of kelp is that it provides all these ecosystem services. So it's a
Mm.
macroalgae, it grows in the ocean, it's making oxygen. So it's not a plant, it's an algae, but it does a lot of the same features. It absorbs excess nitrogen, phosphorus, all the junk that runs off of our roads after a rainstorm. It's absorbing that and cleaning our water. It's
So it's
capturing
another
carbon.
filter feeder. So it's actually a lot like oysters, can be a filterer.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
natural, plants as gardeners, obviously your farming community knows, it needs, there's certain nitrogen and phosphorus that is needed. And so the algae thrives off of that as a macroalgae, but it's also taking it up so that there's not excess
Excess.
in the water to make these algal blooms and other harmful effects. So it's really, really good for the environment. It's a
Yeah.
local, it's a native species that's found in Rhode Island, so it's not something that's introduced. So there's just a lot of like pluses, a lot of wins. So that felt like a natural place to pursue that nurturing instinct. Like maybe I can do this, get back on the water, nurture in a way, and also kind of solve this, chip away at solving this, challenge that's stymieing the growth of this really amazing potential industry. So that's sort
Yeah,
of
so
where I
you
came at it.
yeah, I'm sorry. I tend to jump in sometimes. An idea comes in, I'm like, "Ooh." So you were saying that the market was kind of the issue, that there had not been a great market for it, which is why, the kelp industry had kind of petered off a little bit. So how did you address that? What did you do with that?
I think I
Because
addressed that.
you've got some kelp sitting around there somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, this
Seeing as
is
we're
our
talking about marketing.
greenhouse where we just dry it. It's just passive drying. They do heat the greenhouses. I don't really have any control over that. I would turn off the heat if I could, certain times of the year, but I just hang it up, it dries, it turns out to look like this. It can be crunched up and used for soil amendment, for animals. A lot of livestock really love and thrive eating kelp. It's good for them. So that's what it looks like. I know, I totally forgot your question. Oh, the market. So
Give
I
it
chose
away.
to just acknowledge it and then ignore it, by realizing, okay, I can't solve that I can't even attempt to solve it unless I first learn what kelp farming's all about and grow it
Yeah.
myself and walk that walk. So I basically tackled it by saying, we'll figure that out as we go. Still haven't figured it out, but we're getting there. And knowing also that one of the appealing things with aquaculture in general in Rhode Island, which is 95+% oysters. So in Rhode Island, we have about almost 90 farms owned by some farms are owned by multiple people. So let's say 45 farmers, very small to medium scale businesses, very family oriented.
And just to clarify, these are aquaculture farms that you're talking about.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. And
So I'm
aquaculture.
just for those who do not know Rhode Island
Thank you,
agriculture, to know that we do
thank
have
you.
more than just 45 farms, but we're talking 45 farmers
Ocean
just
farmers.
doing like ocean
Yep.
farming. Right.
Yep, thank you. Yes, so
No
we
problem. No
very,
problem.
very focused on oysters, which has been really a healthy industry and kind of has its blips and ups and downs, but sort of has always trended to be very positive living, not easy by any stretch or reliable, but definitely, somewhat stable. And so the kelp element was just a really fascinating aspect, knowing I could sort of engage with that community. I think the land-based farmers I've met are really, there's that perfect blend of like, okay, I got my secret sauce and my thing going. I'm not going to tell you everything, but I'm here to help you if you
Yeah.
need it with that. So they walk a very nice collaborative line without sacrificing their own enterprise or their own,
Right.
IP. So I think that's a really cool part of aquaculture in Rhode Island. And
Yes.
so knowing I could sort of rely on that community to try to chip away at it, especially the places where there would be shared benefit for multiple
Yeah.
businesses. Other folks really wanted to solve this too, who are permitted to grow kelp. So that was
That's
my
great.
thought.
And there is a pretty stringent permitting process for all of the ocean farming. Am I right
Hmm.
about that? Like you've got to actually go through like state processes to be, you can't just
Hmm.
mark out a part of the ocean and say, "Oh, I'm going to be farming this." And I did an article 100 years ago when I was writing more, well, I still am for country folks, on Perry Rosso, who is like the quintessential oyster farmer in Rhode Island. And yeah, I remember just being really fascinated by what it means to own an ocean farm because it's kind of like a long-term lease. Is that right?
Hmm.
Can you
Yeah.
explain that a little bit?
Sure. So we sublease submerged land from the state of Rhode Island. So the ocean is owned by everyone, right? There's no one owner, but yet we all own it. So it's a shared resource. It's called the Commons. It's in our state constitution, access to the shore, rights to utilize this amazing resource, and it even extends out to our federal laws. So there's no ownership of one resource, which becomes problematic when you talk about fishing because people want to take from, but there needs to be management of, because not one person. So it's a beautiful thing and it can be problematic to manage. But in Rhode Island, we have to apply to lease that submerged land. So we don't own the water column at all. And in fact, we only lease the bottom per se. So it's sort of a strange,
Oh,
but
that's
really
interesting.
nice process. And anywhere from the Army Corps of Engineers to the Coast Guard to the towns to the residents, everyone is welcome to be a part of that permitting process. And there's a lot of application, public meetings, reviews, scrutiny that could take upwards of 2 years. And at this point, there's probably not even a lot of space available that would pass through that permitting process without real contention. So it is a very challenging process. It's very involved, but I think those are safeguards because, again, it is a shared resource. So not one person should come in and occupy hundreds of acres of ocean for their own enterprise. They have to very much, whatever the lease, from 1 acre to 100, has to ensure that that public trust, that commons is maintained. So anybody can passage through my lease, you can drive a boat through it, you can swim around in it. I do
You
own the
you read my
gear, I
mind. That
own,
was going to be my question. My question was going
yeah,
to be,
yep,
how do you manage that
yep.
with the rest of the people who use
Hmm.
the ocean? Because as you said, I mean, we are the ocean state, And so, our ocean is very much a part of our identity, and we love to be on it. We are surfers and boaters and fishers and
Mhm.
paddleboarders and swimmers and all kinds of stuff. So, divers. So yeah, how do you navigate that, and what kind of impact does that have sometimes on your farm, or does it?
I think everything is very localized, so certain places in Rhode Island are heavily used recreationally in terms of the water space, others not so much. So every farmer kind of manages that differently. For my particular place in Portsmouth, I'm in Seconic Cove near Spectacle Island in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. It's about a 2.5 acre lease. There are kayaking activities, there's boating activities adjacent, but we intersect really, really well. Again, not every area is like that. I think there's about 5 of us total farmers in that area. So I think the surrounding coastal communities very aware of aquaculture. Since I've been there haven't been any conflicts or so. Yeah, it's a very much an individual case by case. So that process is very, very involved. So I think that stymies the growth of new farms starting. But that
But also
it's
the
also,
access to, I mean, like all small farmers or incoming farmers,
mm,
yep, whether we're land or sea farmers, we have limited access to land,
mhm.
especially in the Northeast, and because we're so congested and built up. And so with the ocean, it seems like that's even bigger because you have a really limited amount of land that you can access before you get into, I'm imagining, like international waters. And I would imagine you can't rent there. And I'm figuring you've got to stay kind of like, is there a distance from the shore that is ideal versus not ideal? Yeah. So it sounds like a very delicate balance that you have to
Yes,
keep.
yes, there's some regulations around where we can and where we cannot suggest aquaculture activity. And then there's also, protected species controls. So being offshore with lines, that's something that's very difficult to permit because of risk of entanglement. So we're very much restricted literally in the law and also practically to be in the coastal zone. So that's within, less than a mile from shore, obviously, half a mile. I mean, the bay all our aquaculture is in the bay,
Mm,
Narragansett Bay, or our coastal salt ponds, so Ninigret Pond,
yep.
etc. Point Judith Pond. So there is a little bit of aquaculture just outside in like the Harbor of Refuge and a few other places, but really there's nothing out in the open ocean in Rhode
Right.
Island. And there's no suggestions to, nor are we allowed to fish farm. So it's only shellfish and macroalgae like kelp. At this time, it's only kelp. We're not permitted to grow any other algae. Trying to think, and mussels, scallops, bay scallops, oysters, so shellfish, and
Yeah.
then sugar kelp.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so, um, I don't know if you know anything about seaweed, like seaweed farming. Is kelp considered a seaweed, or are they similar, different? I'm showing my ignorance here. But I'm totally okay doing that because how am I going to learn if I don't ask questions?
I love it. I love it. I think that's great. Seaweed, when we say seaweed, it's all the different algae. So you have 3 categories of algae in the ocean, macroalgae, so the big stuff you can touch, not the phytoplankton.
Yep.
3 categories, there's brown, green, and red. So all those are called seaweeds, and there's thousands of species. I mean,
Okay.
thousands of species. Even in Rhode Island, hundreds of species. The greens are like sea lettuce. Sometimes you see it looks like
Yeah.
that bright green. The
Yeah.
reds are sometimes you'll see it washed up on the shore. There's different, it's called gracilaria. It's kind of this like beautiful, there's artists that make nice pressings out of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
plus
Roughly.
many more species. Yeah. And then the browns, there's also other species, but kelp is considered one of the browns. And when we say kelp, it's talking about the brown algae. So kelp
Okay.
is many species of brown algae. Sugar kelp is the exact species, Saccharina latissima. So it is very confusing. So
Well, I
seaweeds
heard
all
I heard
three.
you say sugar kelp then, and so that was
Yeah.
part of what prompted that question because
Yes.
I was curious about how that works.
We mix them all and it's so confusing. So
So really
seaweeds,
it's
all
just the
three.
sugar
Yeah.
kelp. So all those other
Mhm.
types of seaweed we're not actually growing
Nope,
or
we definitely could, and
cultivating.
there's much interest in growing them, and there's a market. The
Yeah.
permitting process is not set up to allow us to do that.
I see. I see. Well, and that is I have I used to be an extension agent in Rhode Island as well. So I've I've kind of dabbled with a lot of all of this stuff.
I love
So I
that.
know just enough to be dangerous in just about every area of agriculture. And so um in Rhode Island, we have, on the one hand, we have a very supportive division of agriculture. We don't even have a
Very much so.
department. We have a division under DEM, the Department of Environmental Management, and they've been hugely supportive and have worked really hard on a lot of these permitting processes because, as you rightly mentioned, like we have lots of permitting processes for all different types of agricultural
Yes.
activities. And they are necessary because, you get a couple bad actors in there and it can ruin it for everybody. And so you actually do need to almost protect the good farmers sometimes from the ones that would push the boundaries, and also to provide some protection for all of the farmers because sometimes we end up with issues with neighbors that are like, well, I want to be able to put my boat through here faster than you say I should be able to because it's going to affect your kelp. And excuse me, to have like a right to farm law that says, no, I can actually farm this here and you have to work with people. That's really fascinating. Um, so I would like to go a little bit to the markets that you were talking about and just figure out where are you selling your kelp and how much do you process it? Like what kind of processing do you yourself do?
Yeah, that's great. I just would reiterate how wonderful our division of ag is. I mean,
Mm,
our chief is an amazing human being and his
yes.
team. They really are supportive. There's it's called the Local Agriculture Seafood Act, LASA grant program that they've kept alive, come thick and thin, and it's this very applied like funds for farmers to like buy a tractor or make a greenhouse, or so it's so wonderful. And I will acknowledge we are recipients. My oyster farm is a recipient of the LASA grant this year, so
Ah, you've got an oyster
amazing.
farm too. I
Yeah,
just
they
learned
walk.
that.
Yep, they just walk the walk or whatever.
Yep.
That they are amazing. So, our markets are strictly agricultural. So we sell to livestock customers. So chicken, sheep, pigs. It's just incredible benefits for those critters, those farmers. And then we also sell for soil amendment. So both forms, it's just the dried kelp that you saw here. We
Yep.
don't do any other processing.
Oh, great.
There's some customers that like the kelp blanched, so it's just dipped in hot water and it cuts the salt and the iodine a bit. So for certain creatures, that's better. So that's really our simple market. I mean, I'll show you this is the storage of the just yard bags of like
Yeah.
dried, you know what I mean, kelp.
Yeah.
And I have an honor system at my greenhouse. I have a bin out front and it's muslin bags of kelp and folks can just come and grab it. If they want more, they message me. I say, come inside, grab a bag. So it's a very down home local, and that's how I want it to be. I don't want to go past New England. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't have the capacity to set up an infrastructure to go past New England. In terms of that, I love it. So that's our markets. We do have a sugar kelp pearls, which is a chef-made, batch-made product every season. She makes us a limited number of these pearls. It's a vegan caviar. So
Oh,
it looks just
cool.
like caviar, the little round balls. Caviar is fish eggs,
Yeah.
which is a very extractive product.
Mm.
Fish are harvested or killed just for those eggs, and that's a
Mm.
huge, and it's very expensive. Those folks who are vegan or vegetarian and don't want to contend with those issues can purchase this product. So this is something where you can put on your oysters. You can put on your salads. You put them in a martini. They're amazing. And it's just a vinegar-based small ball of kelp in this sort of beautiful sort of gelatin-looking ball. So we have that product, also very
Wow.
local. It's at Fresh Harvest Kitchen in Westerly. Folks
Oh
want to
yeah.
buy some. Um, and then we are right now working on two early stage patents for two products that will involve kelp. So hopefully
Oh, we
next year's
can't ask you any
podcast,
questions about that
next
because we don't want to
year's
mess with your patenting
I mean, I don't
system.
know anything about this stuff, but my team is amazing, innovators. So that's kind of cool, and we're hoping to get that would service. One would be for the agricultural market, and one would be for other markets that exist worldwide. So hopefully, but again, it's really just like a slow slog. Both of those products too, the Department of Health in Rhode Island is a really great organization, but I don't think they still know what to do with kelp. So it's very difficult. There's no official process for drying kelp for food.
Right.
I so that I've chosen to not beat my head against the wall and pursue. So I'm going other directions
'Cause-
with my products.
And that is another thing that takes years because I know just getting on-farm processing of meat was a really, really tough thing to do so that you could resell that meat. Like to just process it for yourself was never a problem. But like I remember when the first farmer was going
Mhm.
through that, and it took him, I think it might have been 5 years that he worked on like educating and coming up with solutions, like just so
Yeah.
much determination and creativity
Yeah.
with support from the Department of the Division of Ag, because the Department of Health, they just come from a completely different perspective. And it's not a bad perspective, it's just a completely different framework. Like most of them have
Yes.
never been on a farm. So they don't understand, you say, oh, we're going to be selling meat from the farm, and they're picturing like manure everywhere and, hay in the meat. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
we can't do that. And so, all of these processes, it's not just a matter of let's come up with a good process. It's
Hmm.
also we have to do a lot of educating. And so, I mean, this kind of moves into where I always like to turn these conversations at some point to talk about things like what do you do to keep yourself centered and growing and healthy yourself while you're going through this? Because all of these processes can take a real toll on us, both emotionally and relationally. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
some farmers end up very, very angry with the government agencies. And so that whole like communication, how do we communicate about our livelihood? And which is also our passion, but it's our livelihood. And how do we communicate about that respectfully with people who just don't understand? And not don't understand because they're stupid, but just don't understand because they're not exposed to this stuff. So can you talk to some of that for us? Have you had any of those kinds of experiences? And how do you keep yourself healthy doing all this?
Yeah, I have not figured that out yet, but some strategies I'm working on are definitely that community I mentioned, hunkering down a little bit. And I think that's a strategy separate just from my farm, just sort of a survival tactic in today's uncertain and changing world. And I think there's a bit of a brokenness to humanity in some ways, but
Yep.
in noticing that, I'm sort of going back to growing up. I remember the motto growing up. It was think globally, act locally. Remember that was when
Yes,
recycling
I
started, in
remember
the 80s.
that.
It
Yes.
was the 80s motto. It was that and like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk.
Yeah.
There's sort of things that I'm sort of like, wait,
Just
so
say
I,
no.
yeah, there was that. So I think the think globally, act locally is what I'm applying in my farm world, where I'm hunkering down and I'm making the spheres of influence and onion very small. So I start with my family,
Mhm.
and then it's my friends and my community, and that's it. So anything else there might be shreds of time and energy for, then that's a fourth priority. So just trying to like honor that, and that keeps me okay, is this action, is this path that I'm going to choose for product, is that going to disintegrate any element of that first core of family? Okay, no. Okay, how about friends? Like, is it going to require some, because I'm an only child, so friends have just always been a huge part of my life, and we
Yeah.
are really so blessed. Our friends are just amazing people we've had for 20 years, and we're all raising our kids. So that's a
They're
big
your
one.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, we lean on each other, you're away. It's a hurricane. Can you just go make sure the house isn't flooding? That's a second away. And so then community is this larger group of people that are like ourselves, right? And people that you check in on, you kind of look after. And we have some tactics at home we try to do to keep those things alive. I think that helps me a lot.
Yeah.
And then this, yeah, self-care. I mean, are you kidding me? 25 pounds over. There's just a constant, and you just have to be like, you know, I don't know. The wrinkles are going to be the wrinkles. I'm not dyeing my hair anymore. I mean, these are my own. I'm not going to
I,
fuss about
I,
being a 50-year-old woman and trying to look anything other than my 50-year-old self in this moment. And just trying to embrace that, and it's tricky, right? You're like,
And you're stunningly beautiful.
oh
Like you
my
need to
God.
know that. I mean, you've got the Southern Cal look going. So like
Dang,
you are
dang,
stunning. So
girl.
don't,
Whose
yeah.
podcast is this? Whose is this? Turn the spotlight back to you, right back at you.
It's
Um,
silly.
and those are good things because it's practicing, honoring a whole nother phase of like
Yes.
menopause and, coming into this new era as a woman and not it being not the end of something, but rather the beginning of something, right? Like you've nurtured this family, you've grown these things. So trying to really, but it's tricky and you got to keep the right people around you and it's work and keep the energy vampires away. Like there's a lot of those. And I just try and some days are better than others, right? Some days you're like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm gonna curl up and suck my thumb all night and watch some crappy sitcom. I don't
Yeah.
even know. And just be okay with that. And nothing's gonna get done. And then other
Silly,
days you're
silly
like on
Chinese
fire.
dramas. Those are my guilty pleasure is silly Chinese dramas just because it gets me completely out of my life.
Totally.
And I'm
Yep.
like, I gotta use subtitles,
Yep.
and then I get tired faster
Yeah.
because I'm reading,
Sure.
so I fall
Sure.
asleep sooner. It's like there's
Abstract
so many
silent film. Whatever
benefits
you're
to those kind, whatever you need, right?
Because then the other
Sometimes.
days you're hitting it out of the park, right? Because we're women and we can take on a million things and we can hit
I love
all of them out of the park. So it's sort of like just honoring that it tips and there's not a
that.
steady
Yeah.
state happiness or a steady state sadness and that's the world too, right? Like I think the farm has really the kelp farm in particular because it's a winter so kelp is winter only. So it's
Okay.
like flipped from the land farmers. So when the land
Yeah.
farmers are like harvesting and getting ready for the winter, we're like getting our seed and we're planting for the winter. So it
Oh,
grows all winter and then we harvest in the spring. So it's like this cool flip. And I think I'm out there every week, all winter, January, February, March, like doesn't matter.
out on the
Um,
water, cold, very cold out on the water.
yeah, I love the cold and it's like a secret. It's like I'm out there, I'm like, ooh, I'm privy to a secret. Like, thanks, I won't tell, ocean. Like it's just this quiet time. And I think
Yeah.
that has showed me like, yeah, things are, slow and steady, and sometimes then they're frantic, and then they're so the seasonality of kelp farming has been really helpful for me to recognize. And yeah, again, sometimes we do it better than others. Some days are
Yeah.
better than others.
Well, I love that because, I've been thinking about that whole idea of equilibrium because I think
Mm,
I think we have this idea that if we're going to be
mm,
healthy, we're going to get balanced and we're going to keep our life in balance, which aren't we all trying to
mm-mm,
find
mm-mm,
balance, whatever that looks like?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And what I realized just recently is
mm,
that that balance never stays the same.
mm.
Because if you're growing, if you are a person who is growing and learning and changing,
Yep,
you are constantly going to be expanding into something new, into something different, even if it's just a different version of your own
yep.
awareness. But that shifts things. And so then that balance has to get reestablished. And for a while, I was feeling really frustrated with myself because I would have like balance. Like I'd have about a month where I was like, wow. this system is really working for me. It's perfect. Like I'm getting everything done. Like this is great.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it would fall apart. And I noticed that it usually would fall apart just about the time that I expanded into something new, where all
Hmm.
of a sudden I was stretching out of my comfort zone. And so then all of those systems that were working were still supportive, but the balance was a little upset. And so then it's
Yeah.
like you got to reconfigure it, get to that sense of stasis for a minute, and then that gives you a platform to move to something different. And so I think
Totally.
that idea of the seasonality and just really accepting that, I think that's such a beautiful image. Like I really am resonating with that right now. So thank you for
It's like a
sharing that.
visceral reminder that it's that up and down and that balance has to be. It's like a very visceral because you're like, oh, literally, everything has changed. Like the trees are sleeping, and it's a really nice. For me, I love the winter because it's a gift from the natural world to remind us that we're not functioning outside of that cycle. We have our own. So, and that and girlfriend check-in time. Like I have amazing girlfriends who are just love you for who you are. We call it Vegas time on the boat. Like what happens and says on the boat stays on the boat. Because and that's some Friday farm days, and it's just we just let it all hang out.
I
You know what
love
I
it.
mean? Let it. It's like this is my boat, my rules, and anything goes, but just don't. So it's just kind of a fun.
We'll do anything we want and nobody ever has to know.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of bombs flying, but it's just a way to kind of so I think that community having the peeps because it's not your family. Like your family you kind of have a role that you pull you show up as a
Mm.
role. You show up as mom, you show up as wife. You're not
Oh,
your
yeah.
your full self. So I think those communities yeah, for me that's really helpful. Like going out for a walk, anything, any way you want to be with them, even if it's for steal an hour, is so amazing. Like
Yeah.
I need that. So
Yeah. Oh, I love what you were saying there about the roles that we play in the family, because I usually think that
mm,
like a lot of people that I know do have roles still in their
hmm.
friendships. Like there are certain people that maybe they're the nurturer of the friendship, or they're not necessarily free to be all of themselves. And I'm like that with my sister, and I've got some college friends that are just that way. We get together and it's just it all hangs out, and there are no secrets. It's just, yep, this is what's
Yep,
going on. And I love that you have that, because
yep.
I think we need that. I think all of us have this inner need to be seen and to be heard and to be valued for who we are in all of ourselves. Like not just in the I'm holding it together, I'm looking good, I've got my stuff together, but when the stuff isn't together, when we're falling apart, when we're having a meltdown, when we're you mentioned menopause, and I just did a post not too long ago about, does your farm need a perimenopause protection plan? And I was like, yeah, I totally do, because perimenopause sucks, can I just say? Because all of a sudden it's like you're a
Yes,
teenager again with your
yes,
body going nuts, only
yes.
you've got the wisdom of 4 or 5 decades saying, wait a minute, I did not do this before. Like this is not the way my body worked, and
Yes,
what I'm doing feels insane.
yes, yes, totally,
And
totally.
so, and so that's one of those phases of life, I think, where,
Hmm.
when we're on, I feel like this time of life for us, we do have so much wisdom, so much energy in a lot of ways, because we're still relatively young, and yet we've learned how to take care of ourselves a little bit more, usually after having gone through burnout and learned how not to take care of ourselves. But we've got all this stuff that we still want to do. And then we have
Hmm.
like these few days where all of a sudden, like, we get
Yes,
taken over by this demon, and it's like, whoa, what the heck just happened? At least this is my experience with it.
sure.
Like my poor kids were looking at me one day and they're like, what the heck happened to mom? And they're like, Mom, we thought you were gonna kill us. And I was like, I thought I might kill somebody. And we weren't really, it wasn't
Yes,
that bad. It was just some yelling. But the fact that I
sure.
was like yelling and screaming and swearing, they're like, wait, whoa, who is this person? And what did you do with my mother? And you have almost this out of body experience where you can like
Yes,
see yourself doing this stuff. And you're like, wow, that's a little crazy.
I
And there's
agree.
nothing you can do to stop it. So,
No. Well, it's almost, I was thinking about when we chatted before, these windows of time, and I feel like
yes,
my window of time is now between now and 55, and it's very like not everybody has probably specific timeline on that window,
right.
but you can kind of intuitively feel it. And I
Mm.
feel like this is the only time I could have ever become a farmer. This is the only time I could ever have built this community of, been a part of and sort of contributed to this community of farmers,
Yeah.
ocean farmers and women. It's like literally right now. And I think that that's partly because of that wisdom, like you're saying, of a lifetime, right? And we all bring our specific wisdoms from our lived experiences. And I think I'm like super excited about that. And I feel like I get really like angry and grumpy when the sort of societal portrait of that is like, oh, the decline, you're in your decline. And my husband does this too. I don't even think he realizes it, but I think men have a different midlife experience where he's seeing like, oh my God, my physicality is my defining feature and that's changing and I have busted knees and hurting back. And so he's like has a negative skew on this phase of life where I'm like, oh no. And I get very angry. I'm like, do not take this and make negative, don't negativize my happy time in life, so I get very like protective of this window of time. Like,
Yeah.
this is my 5 years, 5 years left to do all this. And it's like it's as clear as if someone like put the little chip in my brain is like, here's your map, do it now. This is your window. And it's not
Yeah.
because something's bad, it's going to happen after. It's just that this is the effective time. Like, this is kind of this is when the plant is producing the most powerful medicinal quality.
Because I
Yeah.
love that you were using intuitive,
Mm,
you said it's intuitive.
yep. Yep.
When we start to really connect with ourselves and what our purpose is, and I've said this before on this show, but I firmly believe that every single one of us is here for a purpose. And so
Hmm.
when we connect with that purpose, that does give us energy and enthusiasm and joy and passion and that like
Yes, totally.
I'm gonna do this because I was meant to do it. And it
Yes.
doesn't matter if anybody understands. It doesn't matter if it
Nope.
makes sense
Nope.
because there is a sense within really
Yes,
like
totally.
I mean, how many people
I know.
if you look at the really blah, 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 I love how I talk. If you
Mm,
look at the really influential people in the
mm,
history of the world, how many of them were doing the sensible things when they were doing what they were doing that changed the world?
yep.
People looked at them and thought they were crazy.
Totally.
What are you talking about that the earth goes around the sun, you lunatic? That's not the way it works. Like doing things that just seemed not sensible. And
Hmm.
now we look at them and they're, the heroes of
Hmm.
history.
Hmm.
And so I think each one of us has that hero in us. And yeah, when that calling comes, like go with it. Go
Well,
with
it's
it.
funny when it services society and family and relationships, like, oh, mother's instinct, I'll lean on that mother. You're the one that connects and bonds with the baby. Like, that's valued. But then when that instinct has been gratefully lent to that experience, but now we want to use that instinct to enhance ourselves or a calling or a purpose, then we're crazy. So it's like, oh, when it services, that instinct is super valuable, and
Yeah.
you in fact lean on it to raise the children of the world. But then when we want to use that exact same instinct to further ourself and our calling, we're
Selfish.
emotional or irrational or selfish or
Yep.
yeah. So that's a very, and I have learned to the shielding tech. I have this thing and I get all crazy on, I love planes, I love traveling, but I do this thing where I, I visualize a shield around my family. It's so ridiculous. And I actually picture
No.
like a pangolin. You're seeing this cool critter, this
Yeah.
pangolin, they have
I
this like
love them
cool,
with the scales.
yeah. So I literally picture whoop, 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 whoop. pangolin shields around my kids, and then it's radiating light, and I protect them. So I've learned, I don't even, from what, I don't know, but I just do it.
Yeah.
And then I've been doing that with that instinct, like, no, this is a pangolin, this is a shield, and you're going to try to hack at it. And it's not like intentional, it's just the flow
No.
of American society in particular. We don't, those things aren't valued, so they're ridiculed or attacked even unintentionally.
And
So I
it's
put this shield
discomfort
around
from
it,
the
and I'm
people
like,
around us.
yep,
When we shift something about ourselves, it makes
yep,
everybody uncomfortable because it changes everybody's interactions. It's like we were talking about growing and
totally,
having to reestablish our own sense of equilibrium and how that is a
yep,
never-ending process. And so the people around us, as we grow and change, they have to change with us.
yep,
And they either like it or don't like it. It's either easy or difficult, but they're going to want to bring us back into what's familiar, even if
totally,
what we're moving towards is better,
yep,
because familiar is safe
yep,
and
100%.
different is scary. And I just want to say, your shielding technique, I just want to tell you, your shielding technique is not at all crazy. Um, and when you were saying it, I got chills because every day before my children go to school, and actually I do it with the neighbors as well. Now, my kids are middle schoolers. So my son is 13, my daughter's 11, and the boys next door are the same age. So I'm standing out there at the bus stop with these four teenagers, and I make them all put their shield of faith, and we physically do it. We put their shield of faith, and then I go and I give them each a hug and I fill it with love. And so
Oh,
it's that same thing where
same.
we're putting a shield of
Yep,
protection around them for the
yep,
day, and we're
yep,
filling it with all of our love so that they know that whatever is coming at them, the
yep.
crap is not going to have room to come in, but all the good stuff is going to be able to seep right into that love, and it's just going to be a part of them. And so, no, I totally love that you do that. And and it's true. Like I mean, the fact that I've got four teenagers who do that and do
Oh,
not balk at it. I mean, two of them aren't even mine. Makes sense that my kids would do the crazy things that the mother says. The two kids next door do it too. Like, who's ever
I love
heard of such a thing? So,
love it.
there is that there is energy in the world. And I'm looking at the time and I'm saying, oh, I
And
could
we
just
haven't even, we're just totally went on a sideline, and I love it.
well,
So,
this is no, this is what we do here is
oh, good.
we always start farm focused
Awesome.
and we stay farm focused. It depends on, honestly, it probably mostly depends on how familiar I am with your type of farming. If I know
Yeah.
you're farming really well, then we quickly move into other areas. But if I'm learning stuff, I'm like, oh, I want to learn that. Oh, I want
Yeah.
to learn that. And then we come to this time of the episode where I ask my signature question. And this is the question I ask everybody. If
Yeah.
you had one piece of advice that you wanted every farmer to know, what would that be?
Oh, oh boy, that's an easy one. Um,
I'm good at the easy questions.
I would say to, well, honor thyself, or, there's that sort of a, but it's something different from that. It starts with that, and then it kind of goes to, I think farmers, whatever kind of farming, ocean farming, lamb farming, starting out farming, big farming, there is a connection to the earth. And you're right, there's some practices that are more sustainable than others. But I think there is some sort of pull to our world, right? Our physical world, like our earth. And I think that sometimes my piece of advice would be to just kind of try to check in with that, like no matter where you're at in that journey, because I think there is some intuitive advice through that. There is something that will become apparent in that decision point, that decision tree. That if you go back to the roots, right, the roots will inform that tree. So I think sometimes the eagerness to pursue kelp as this really wonderful market potential for all these different products, right? So kelp is used in fuel, it's used in fertilizers, it's used in products, it's used in all these things. So there's and bioplastics even. There's a whole bioplastics industry that uses kelp.
Yeah.
Really remarkable market opportunities, but I think as individual enterprises, we need to check back in with that connection because scale isn't always the answer. Maybe scale is the answer. Keeping local might not be the answer, but maybe it is the answer. And I think sometimes all the advice and the input around the industry is to just check into the roots of being a farmer, which it truly is, connected to the earth in some way. And I think that is not always easy to do. And like you just did when we started, you took a breath. Like how a simple gesture of pause. And I think for farmers, that's the breath. It's
Oh, I love
it's
that.
to just check back into to what the earth has to say to you, and you call it woo woo, can call it whatever, but I know farmers do it, and I don't care who you are, but they do some form of that. And I think just to remember that in any phase of your journey as a farmer.
Oh, Azure, so much there.
Aw.
I am itching to throw my 5 cents in, but I'm not going to because what you said was beautiful, and I want to leave it with your voice. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And as your new products come out, we'll have to get you on again and talk about how your patents went. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us on Food, Flowers, and Fun. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Farmworks calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for Food, Flowers, and Fun. Go in peace. Visit us at www.penlightfarmers.com.